Should we get going? There you go. Are these working today?
Hello.
Yeah. All right. Does everyone know you can get a coffee down at Joey Zaza's? Just tell them you're here at Morning Startup and don't have to pay for it. Thanks to the wonderful folks at Purpose Ventures that we're going to get into in a sec.
Exciting.
All right. Wow, we got a few more empty seats than I expected. I'm sure there's going to be people rocking up. Are there many people out there still getting coffees, Dave?
It is very cold.
Yes, thanks for braving the weather, coming along. Who hasn't been to Morning Startup before? Really, Dave? You haven't been?
Oh.
Been organising it for 13 years. All right, well, so introductions, I guess.
Yes.
My name is Scott Glue. I'm a co-founder of a company called FastView. This is...
Nina. I'm a co-founder of a company called Made Out.
And we've got Dave Newman at the back there. He runs a company called Plan Care. And Erin, unfortunately, couldn't make it today. She runs a company called Stories Unseen. But yeah, we're all founders and we like to get together with other founders and learn interesting stuff and share knowledge and all of that stuff. And that's why Morning Startup exists. So hopefully you're all in that sort of realm, starting a business or thinking about doing it and want to network with others and learn interesting stuff. So we host this every 2 weeks, rain, hail or shine. Hopefully we've got a cool, interesting speaker. We're very adamant that all the organisers have to be founders because it's only founders that know the sort of content that we want to hear. So, if we're not hitting the mark, let us know. But
you guys have been doing this for like 13 years before Erin and I jumped in as well?
Yeah. I think it started 2012,
Wow.
2011 when I started FastView. So, yeah, it's been going a while.
It's pretty special.
But what we like to do to get started is shameless plugs and announcements. So if you've got something you're working on and you just want the world to know about it, this is your chance. You can stand up, give us a little 20-second, 30-second pitch, plug,
We have one.
anything you like.
Hi, morning everyone. My name is Kamal. My business name is Guy Plus, a bridge between human and machine. It's a human service pathway to the power of AI. One of the product I provide is siren and beacon alert system. So it is quite interesting for me, especially like if there is window cracking or if there is any unusual activity happening in home or in an apartment, I provide siren and beacon alert system. Thank you.
An alert system for unusual activity in your home.
My cats would love that. They'd just be so happy.
Cool,
Anyone else?
all right.
Come on.
Hey guys, my shameless plug this morning is I've just started working with a small team over in O'Connor and they're working on a business called Retention Track. So who we're looking for at the moment is bookkeepers of who work with construction companies. So just to give you a bit of background, in the construction game, 5 or 10% of a contract after a job is done is held for 12 months. And so the tradie or the person who's actually been doing that work doesn't get that money until they ask for it back 12 months later. So this platform is all about keeping track of that payment and getting it back. But what we've discovered is that there's actually about $30 billion circulating in the economy right now across Australia and New Zealand that isn't really accounted for well. So this software is working on that.
Okay, and you're looking for bookkeepers.
That's amazing.
Okay, nice.
Oh. Anyway, I think... you turned off my microphone.
I know, did your battery run out?
Anyone else?
Any more shameless plugs, announcements, events? Dave, you got something?
Okay. Oh.
Oh, good on you.
No worries.
Okay, here we go.
It was,
I was going to get you to do this. My name's Matt. I'm actually here with my co-founder, Kyan, this morning. I've been running a physiotherapy company for 18 years, and Kyan and I want to sort of shake up physiotherapy space. We believe in optimising the care away from the restriction in just the appointment time for patients. So we've sort of got a hybrid model through a company we founded called Theravise to actually improve the experience away from the typical time in front of a physiotherapist. So that's our thing that we've been working on for 18 months, and we're here to keep learning, and we think we've got a problem that's worth resolving. Thanks.
what's it called again?
Theravised.
Theravised. Okay, cool. You can take a look at my shoulder after this.
Hi, I'm Sam Nelson from Pleiades. My very short plug is we provide epistemic integrity to the most important problem in the world. So that's just to get people thinking about it, but basically what we've taken is data architectures used by the global scientific community and put them under corporate ESG reporting so that you can really drill down to all your base numbers and not have any sort of edge cases. You can handle everything. We're targeting line of sight for directors on resources companies as required under ISO 14,000 because directors are supposed to maintain line of sight on environmentals, and we can actually, instead of have 14 different applications floating out of there, we can pull all that together into trusted information and then provide it to analytics for business analysis or for the investors' dashboards. So that's our core thing. We're also working in sustainable infrastructure as
What's it
another
called?
application. Pleone.
Pleone.
Yeah.
.io.
That's how Americans would pronounce it.
And I think I have
Hi,
two
Annie.
more. One of them is Dave.
All right. Any more? Yes.
Hey guys, my name's Ben, co-founder of InStep. We're a gamified fitness app that turns your everyday steps into real rewards. We're a two-man team and we're looking for funding so that we can help with our mission of building better habits for people every day, one step at a time. You can check us out at instep.fit.
One step at a time. I'll see what you did there.
This is a perfect event for you. And we have Dave.
Just a quick one. Just for those of you who are a scale-up and you are looking for an event, this Monday there is one being run by the lovely Kate Harris. It's called Leading at Scale. If you're interested in having an event, it does cost. It is $39, but it does include a bit of food and drink. But there is an event this Monday the 4th here at this beautiful Riff, starting at 5:30. If you're interested, let me know. I'll give you the URL.
I'll also chuck it up on our Slack channel as well. I'll put the link up there in a minute. But yeah, jump on Slack. I've got another shameless plug here, I think.
My name is Jasmine. I am the founder of StrideMate. It's very new, but I'm developing a participant-led civic tech system and platform. So NDIS participants themselves, not service providers, can advocate and submit their applications for funding directly to NDIS. And there's a bit more to that as well. Basically, it's democratising the entire social services network.
That's so
Okay.
nice.
Shall we chat with Davo at the end
we
of
have-
this?
do we have any
similar
more?
Space?
No?
One more?
One more. Yay.
Cool.
Hello, my name is Junpei. I recently got connected to an entrepreneurial community to create some passive income, and we streamline supply chains online and utilise a networking model. And we focus a lot on leadership and mentorship development, and come along here to meet with like-minded people and
Cool.
gain some insights. So,
Is that a
thank
company
you.
that you're running? Does it have a name or anything?
It's private mentoring, so it's a lot of one-on-one coaching and then an education process I had to go through, so
All right.
a lot of learning, yeah.
Cool. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Exciting.
All right. So we're going to have about half an hour of networking at the end of the talk today as well, so you get to know each other. But let's move on. So
Founder Sundowner. Every first Wednesday of every month, we are in West Leaderville, other side of nowhere. It's actually really nice because we get pizza.
exactly. Yeah. Pizza's free. Drinks, unfortunately, are not. You cover those yourself. But yeah, if you want to come along and hang out with founders, what is the date? 30 days, that's September. Is it tomorrow? Is it tomorrow?
No.
Or then,
No,
yeah, next week.
Yeah, tomorrow.
All right, cool. We're live streaming this to the world, to the regions. Thank you to Perth Video for doing that. But also thank you to I think the name has officially changed now. I don't think it's the JITSI anymore. DEED, Department of Economic Diversification and or something like that.
I don't hate that.
We need to get a new slide and the new thing. But they're the ones that are helping us with the live stream. So thank you very much for that. They also run a bunch of programs across the startup innovation ecosystem, including grants for startups. You can get $40,000 for the Innovation Booster grants, up to $200,000 of match funding with the commercialization grant.
Yeah, and you all can always
got-
go on Deal Room as well and check if you're already there, and if not, like put yourself on that.
Absolutely. Put as much or as little information as you want on Deal Room, or just go there and check out all the insights on all the other companies in WA. It's very cool. Thank you.
It's good for your SEO.
The government department, previously known as Jitsi. All right, if you want to check out the live stream, you're probably there already. Morning Startup Perth, so perthvideo.com.au, Morning Startup Perth. Also check out Perth Video if you need any live streaming services for your wedding, parties, anything. Get on them. We heard from Jack before, but you run a company called Ammo. You're the general manager of Ammo in Perth. Anything cool happening with Ammo at the moment that you want to do another shameless plug for? Or it's all good? No. They can help you out with marketing.
I work for nothing.
Go subscribe to the Ammo marketing newsletter. Get some really cool insights.
I stalked their website, and it's all about like marketing for startups, and because you guys were a startup as well at one point, so it's for founders.
Yeah. They know their stuff. If you want to hit the accelerator, get on Ammo Marketing. They also have a really cool podcast, Weird Growth, founders, interviews, all of that stuff. Yeah. Thank you, Ammo, for supporting a morning startup for so long. Along with Beecham Group. Is Glenn here?
I don't think we have one here, which is very...
We don't get the 30 seconds of wisdom from Glenn, but they're a boutique recruitment company here in Perth. If you need to hire people, or you've got talent and you want to get a good gig at a startup or any company.
And I feel like it's very challenging to recruit right now, so they're really useful.
Absolutely. They're very well connected, know everyone in the game. We got some food at the back. That's thanks to the fine folks at KeepSpace. Anyone in e-commerce, shipping goods around the world, need warehousing and a platform to manage all of that?
Yeah, no, like I do a lot of that, and it is very annoying, especially for somebody who just want to do their thing and like get the product to the customers. But all the other admin, very annoying, and KeepSpace is very good for that because they handle packaging, like shipping, all of that. It's really good.
Exactly. Yeah, I saw them unloading like a massive 14-foot container the other day, and they do all that for you. You don't have to do it in your garage anymore. Check them out. And, of course, Purpose Ventures. Woo! So we've got Derek and we've got Lockie here today, and they're going to take you all through how you can get the most when you are pitching to investors and hopefully get to that yes. So I won't do too much of a pitch right now, but you're going to hear all about them. And they help us out with coffees. You've been helping us out with coffees for all of 2025. Thank you very much. As I like to say, if they don't invest in your startup, they will at least buy you a coffee every 2 weeks. So thank you, Purpose Ventures.
Space Cubed is the space, and like thanks to them, we have a space here every morning, every Wednesday, or second Wednesday, which is really good. They also have startup news. Like they, honestly, +8, they run a lot of really, really good, like community events that are just there to sort of accelerate people and startups, which is really nice.
Absolutely, yeah. So get around these programs, subscribe to Startup News, become a member of Startup WA. That's our body for lobbying to government to get all those cool programs that you saw earlier. Just get around it. Subscribe to all the things and get all the info. Thank you, everyone. This QR code, if you want to scan it, it's like a little chat co-pilot thing. So you can type in what sort of startup you are, and it will direct you to the best program in WA. There's a whole bunch of them. Bloom, Core, ECU's got its staff, UWA has its staff. There's a bunch of programs around WA. Cool. So, as I said, we run this every 2 weeks. We're always looking for cool founders. Although ever since bringing Erin and Nina on, I think we're now booked up until November for talks.
I think it's begun now in December.
Just booked another one for next year. So spots are limited, but if you're interested in doing a talk one day and you are a founder, you want to share your journey, or you've got some really cool insights on how to use whatever to get to the next milestone of your startup, hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. Or, at the very least, join us on slack.morningstartup.com. So in between morning startup events, we'll be sharing information, having a chat, put up your questions. We really want this to be like the central chat community for Perth, for startups. So please get on there and ask questions. It is a bit of a ghost town, unfortunately. It's just got us organisers kind of chatting amongst ourselves a lot of the time. But so please get on it and use it. We'd love to see you there. All right. 2 weeks' time. Is Lee here? We had Lee last week on a panel, so yeah, he's sandwiching the Purpose Ventures talk. But he's a fractional CTO, and he's going to give advice on what to look for in a great CTO co-founder. Is anyone out there like an ideas person, business person, but they just don't have the tech skills to create their thing, and they need some advice there? Cool. So like, how do you trust that person that you're going to essentially get in a marriage for the next 4 years or the life of your startup? You really want to make sure they're legit. There are some tips that he's going to share around.
Yeah. And he's really knowledgeable and really passionate about AI, so I'm sure he'll mention that as well. Loves to share, so that's great.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's in 2 weeks' time. That is formalities out of the way. Formalities, people. Cool. All right. That's enough from us. We're going to hand over to, are you up first or Lockie up first? I'll switch over. But yes, as I mentioned, Purpose Ventures, one of the leading VCs here in WA. They're going to help you hopefully get to that yes point when you're pitching to VCs. What's that? The only VC? Ooh, all right. Let's see. Okay, well, please make them welcome, Derek and Lockie.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Let's check we're good. Yep, great. I'm not a morning person, so to see many people show up is very encouraging, so thank you. Whenever I do a session at Morning Startup, because these guys don't do it themselves, I love to do a call out to Dave and Scott, because Morning Startup's actually the longest running startup community and event in Western Australia. And what are you up to? 13? How many? 12? 2012. So 13 years showing up at this time of the morning. And Dave used to drive up from Mandurah as well, so crazy hours. So thank you guys for what you've built here and continuing to do that. Right, so can I just check who's in the room, who's running a startup at the moment? Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Who thinks they might be trying to find funding in the next, say, 12 months? All right, that's kind of why you're here today. Good. Apologies to those. I'm just looking around. There's a few people that might have seen a lot of this presentation before, but it was your choice to come back, not mine. So I assume there's something that you want to see again. Today I'll explain a little bit about Purpose Ventures at the end of the session, but what we're going to try and do for the bulk of it is, irrespective of us being a venture fund, give you just some tips and thoughts about what you can do to give yourself the best shot of just raising capital, particularly venture capital. There's obviously lots of different types of funding that you might find for your startup, and we'll touch on that briefly, but today is very much around the venture capital option for that. We'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. So just to introduce Lockie. Where's he gone? Lockie's at the back. So Lockie is our community manager and does many things, looks after our office. If we invest in a company, we have a lot of portfolio events and things. He helps with that. We run events ourselves that Lockie does, but also Lockie does all of our branding. So all these images are not AI built that you see on our slide deck. Lockie literally hand illustrates those, so talent there. But if you can't catch me at the end and have some questions, definitely grab Lockie. He can probably help with most of your questions. That was a bit weird. I can't quite see my slides as I go. So just by way of background, it's just a few of the things that I've done over the last 10, 20 years, just to give you a sense. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. But the important things here to note is I was originally a software developer. Dave and I were just talking about this back in when Y2K was a thing, if anyone is that old and remembers Y2K, and then the dot-com crash, and then from there. But when I came back to Perth, one of the things I did was ran a startup company called GreenSense. So we did real-time energy and water monitoring for commercial and industrial buildings. The company was founded in 2007. We went through some capital raising ourselves and got some government grants, and then eventually that company was acquired about 10 or 11 years ago. And so the reason for mentioning this is ever since then, that the acquisition was about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I've been trying to give back to the WA startup ecosystem in all sorts of different ways, which I'll mention in a moment. But the point about that story is I've sat where you've sat, which is I've got this new company, this huge idea, I'm going to need to raise money. trying to figure out how I pay the bills the next day. We had 42 conversations with investors before we raised our first $1 million. And so I kind of know what that's like, and it's quite unusual in Australia. Most venture capital firms are set up by finance professionals, not necessarily ex-founders. And so we like to think it's just a little edge that we've got over other VC funds because we kind of know what that's like. We've kind of sat in your shoes. From there, I've done a bunch of things. Again, I won't go through it all, but I'll call out a couple of things. Better Labs, you might know, is the RAC-backed venture capital fund. So I actually set that up and helped them get that going, and we invested in 30-plus companies over the time that I was there. Also, Plus 8 that was mentioned. I ran Plus 8 for 5 years, or was the EIR. So lots of things in the WA ecosystem. The other role I have is I chair a foundation called Malka. And so our charitable giving, 80% of it goes towards building the WA startup ecosystem. So programs that you know, such as Bloom or UWA Venture, Curtin Ignition, Curtin Accelerate. Malka is a lot of the funding that sits behind that. So I love that because it means I get to spend a lot of time in the really early stage grassroots founders just getting going. And then with Purpose Ventures, that we're going to talk a bit about of today, is at the other end of that funnel where people get through and are kind of looking for some serious capital to grow their business. So yeah, it's kind of cool. The point being, I love what I do. I get to meet so many interesting people. And the way I think about it, and given most people in the room, you've got a startup or on that journey, I just find that very energising. The reality is you're taking some kind of risk to go and solve this problem that you care deeply about, and you'll have your reason for that. And that risk at the moment might be working late nights, it might be putting a bit of your personal money into it, but eventually that risk might get bigger and bigger as you go all in on this idea. And so, yes, if I can at least buy you a coffee, as Scott said, that's kind of like why we like to sponsor Morning Startup. But, you know, maybe you're one of the few companies that we get to back as well. So whatever we can do to help, we try our best. Obviously, I didn't mention Purpose Ventures, I probably should touch on. So I'll get to a bit more of the details in a moment, but we launched our fund. Oh, hey Lee. This is Lee, who's presenting next week, or next time actually, so there you go. And a shout out, Lee's a really good guy to listen to. He does all of our fractional CTO work, so if you need CTO help, then he's your guy. Shameless plug as you walk in, there you go. Yeah, so Purpose Ventures as a fund, I'll cover a bit more of this in a moment, but we launched officially just over 2 years ago. We've raised $55 million, and all of that's come from West Australian investors. And the cool thing about that, and particularly for everyone in the room, is that the main mandate of our fund is about a geographical focus. So 70% of that fund is to invest in WA founded or operated companies. So we're just closing our 9th investment at the moment. And so obviously I'll talk a bit more about that and how you can get in touch with us towards the end. But right now, just some generic thoughts on venture capital. So the first thing, if you've ever seen one of my presentations around funding, I always say, first thing, if you only remember one point of everything I'm going to say today, not all money is good money. Now, what I mean by that is we've seen so many great companies that are desperate for money. They'll take the first money that is offered to them. And often that money then can prevent you actually building your company and raising more money and building the company that you want. That is because sometimes you take it from the wrong type of investor. Maybe you're not aligned on outcomes, and as Scott was saying before, this is a long-term, actually we're talking about long-term relationship with CTO, same thing, long-term relationship with your investor. If that is not aligned, that will cause problems which will prevent your company growing. Sometimes that investor puts the money on terms that are not conducive to attracting more capital down the track, or maybe they've taken too much control. Maybe that's gone as inappropriate debt, for example. So there's lots of things that can happen where you take money and it takes this small kind of baby that you're building at the moment in a different direction. And so my point is, it is okay for you to do due diligence on your investor and make sure there's alignment and be slow in making that decision, which is really hard sometimes when you desperately need cash and someone's offering that money. As an entrepreneur, you feel like, I'm just going to take that, that'll solve my problem and get to the next step. But I just warning you, I guess, the caution, I suppose, is just be careful and make sure there's alignment. And I'll give you some questions at the end you can actually use to ask your investor as part of your due diligence on them. It always feels like, as a founder, in the early days anyway, that the investor kind of has the upper hand a bit. It's like, well, I need your money. I'm kind of, especially in a market like Perth, I should say, you're you're like, I really feel like they're the ones with all the power and control, and I've got to do everything I can to get their money. What you've got to understand for a company like mine, it's actually a little bit the other way around. Like, my business only works if I can find great companies to invest in. And so there is this mutual requirement of due diligence and things. So just be okay, checking in and asking questions as you need to of your investor. All right, so there's lots of words in our industry, and I'm just trying to give you an idea of when you might want to raise capital. There's obviously very generic numbers up here, but the different stage that you would raise at, what we might call it, and where you might get that capital from. So again, as I said, these numbers are pretty generic, and depending on the type of business that you're building, you might, like if you're a deep tech company, the capital you're going to need is a lot more than this. This is probably more like a SaaS kind of business. And to be honest, with AI, these whole metrics are changing anyway. It used to be to get a Series A round, you kind of needed to be at about $1 million ARR, give or take. That number is probably going to go to 2 or 3 because the expectation with AI is you can move so much faster in your growth. So even this is probably going to be out of date pretty quickly. Probably where most people are at, if I was going to guess, is this some kind of pre-seed, maybe seed round. Pre-seed is like, I've got this idea, I just need to kind of start building something, maybe think about a really early MVP, test if customers are interested in my idea. You kind of need 50 grand, 100 grand to sort of get going with that, to build something. That, to be honest, is a lot of the time personal capital. That might be friends and family. You might kind of consider some grants. I talked about JETSI, the government department, which is now DEED, which is the Department of Energy and Economic Diversification, I think. And they have some great grant programs, some at $50,000, some at $200,000. So that's kind of that first type of check. And you can kind of get the idea that, that might be this sort of 100K, and then you move into your seed round that might be up to $1 million, and roughly what the valuation of your business might be and what you might need to do to kind of get there and on the journey goes. So probably a better depiction of that for this morning is kind of here. And the point really today, often I'll do a session where we go through all of these different funding types. So, hey, in this early proof of concept, pre-seed round, it's angel investors, family and friends, maybe some grants. You sort of move across as you get your product in market and start getting some early revenue where you might get that funding from. And this whole kind of period is where you're not profitable. And so it's called the Valley of Death because it's often really hard to attract investment at that level. There's plenty of investors that will be happy to give you money once you've got a repeatable business model and you're generating profit. It's a lot of people that you can talk to, and so your challenge is to figure out how you fund through that valley of death. And where we kind of fit and where venture capital fits, we're an early stage investor, meaning we will invest pre-seed and pre-revenue, albeit in our case we want to make sure there's a really clear pathway to revenue, but we will come in early. But a lot of VCs still operate in this kind of scaling, the model's working, it's repeatable, and you're kind of more in a scale-up zone. So when you think about venture capital, if you're just getting started and you're in this proof of concept product launch, not that we're not happy to have a conversation, but we're probably unlikely to fund you as venture capital. We kind of sit in this early VC kind of range. As a ballpark, our minimum check can be whatever it needs to, but preferably it's about $1 million. So until you're kind of ready to put that type of capital to use, that's kind of when venture capital would become the appropriate funding source for you. So just a few things to keep in mind. When founders go to raise capital, you probably don't realise the whole process takes about 6 months. Often people think, hey, this is going to be a 1 or 2 month journey. As I said to you before, when we raised capital for our business, I had to talk to 42 investors before we found the first investor that would put in the $1 million that we were seeking. And by the time you figure out who that list of people is, you get introductions to them, you set up meetings, you go and have the meetings, they might want another meeting, then they want to go into a due diligence process, and that's going to take a couple of weeks at best, if not longer. Then if they're interested, they're going to put up a term sheet, you sign the term sheet, and then you get to the lawyers. And not that lawyers are doing the wrong thing, but I'll often say lawyers only add value when they make a change to a document, which means you're going to have a set of documents and they're going to want to change it, and then the next lawyer will change it, and that just takes time backwards and forwards. And so the thing you've got to think about is that if you have capital requirements and you've already got monthly burn in the business and you're raising money, you don't allow cash runway for at least 6 months, you're going to start running out of money right at the point when you're doing your negotiation. And some investors, at the end of the day, this is investment, right? They're not charities. They might leverage that a little bit to actually kind of get a better deal for themselves, knowing that you really, really need their money. So you just need to make sure that you're not putting yourself or your business under working capital pressure at the exact time you're trying to raise that money. So just a bit of a tip, I guess, in terms of how long it can take. We have done deals. We're doing a deal at the moment, which from meeting the company to closing the round will actually have only been 7 or 8 weeks. But we've actually known this company for about 2 or 3 years. So there's been this relationship that's been building. So whilst the capital process has been quick, the relationship's been a bit longer. When you go to meet investors, one of the first things you'll need as a document is your pitch deck. You can just take a photo of this. It's just an example of the biggest accelerators around the world and what they expect to see in a pitch deck. And obviously the bigger dots are the commonalities there and the things that you want to make sure you cover. The one I'm surprised that's not here is the traction milestones. Most of those accelerators are US based, and maybe they're more interested in the technology and the actual commercialisation of your business. In Australia, I think your traction slide is really important, like just proving that you've been interacting with customers, ideally that those customers have been paying revenue, ideally if you've got month-on-month growth. That stuff in Australia will get investors excited pretty quickly. Okay, so one of the best things I can do to talk about how do you get VC ready is to talk about the most common reasons that we pass on deals. Because what happens in our process is when we meet you and you might come and say hello today and tell me a bit about your business. The first thing I'm trying to do, honestly, is fall in love with you and your team and your business and your market and just get really excited like you are about the problem that you're solving. And if we kind of go, hey, this is something here, we love this, we're kind of getting on really well, we love the vision that you've got. The very next thing we do is we then go into our due diligence process and we do the exact opposite and we go, well, let's find a reason not to invest. And we're trying to get through our process. And if we get to the end of it and go, can't really find anything, or if we can kind of manage through that, then we can start thinking about a deal. And so these are kind of the top 4 reasons, and there are many, as to what happens in that due diligence process when a deal might fall over. And there's 4 of them. Okay, so the first one is what we describe as lack of founder commitment or equity. There is nothing wrong, let me just clarify this because sometimes I get misinterpreted here. There's nothing wrong with being what I would describe a multipreneur. I'm not sure if he's the best example, but Elon Musk obviously is involved in many companies and raises capital for those, and many of them are successful. But as an investor, in our fund, we're going to invest in 15 to 20 companies. Like we're going to make 15 to 20 bets. So if we're going to give you our money, we want to make sure that you're all in on that one thing. There's no backup plan. There's no, you can invest in this business and I'm doing something else over here. There's no, you can invest in the operating company, but I have the IP over here. It's all in, everything, all focused. And often people will say, oh, the other company that I had, it doesn't take up much of my time. Like it's only like an hour a month. I'm like, yeah, but if I'm going to give you my money, I want that hour a month as well. Like I want everything that you're doing to be focused around that. And so, and again, it's not wrong that you're doing that. It's just if you want our money, that's the way the setup needs to look like. The other thing is around equity. And often you may have raised money in the past before you've met us, or you might have had previous co-founders or something, and I'll give you some examples in a moment, but the equity structure of your business is such that your equity position when you meet us is too small. Maybe sub 20%, depends on how many co-founders you've got, maybe sub 10% if you've got a few. And for us, like obviously we want to see return of our capital and make money, that's kind of the point. But certainly from a Purpose Ventures perspective, we really want to back you as founders, and we're trying to back this vision and dream that you've got. And if you're not equity incentivized, because you're going to give up a lot in the early years of the business, and you're not thinking about the exit and what you might get out of that, it actually gets really easy for you to walk away because the equity incentive is not there. And then suddenly we've invested in a company and we've invested in you and we're backing you, and if you decide to leave, we're left with the company trying to figure out what we need to do. So making sure you've got enough equity to kind of get through the journey is a really important thing for us. What I often forget to mention actually, Purpose Ventures, people misinterpret our name of the fund. The way we think about it is when we're investing in startups, yes, we do lots and lots of due diligence, but the one thing that probably accounts for about 70% of what we're thinking about is the founding team. Because the reality is right now your business model's wrong, your product's probably wrong, your price is probably wrong, your market's probably wrong. That's the point of being a startup, because you're iterating on all of that until you figure it out. The one thing that's consistent and not wrong is that as a founder, you've got a problem that you care deeply about, and you've got the perseverance and resilience to keep going until you solve that problem. And so we spend a lot of time trying to figure that part out. And so the other way to think about it is we're trying to back people that are chasing after what we might call their life cause or their kind of life purpose. And that's where the name Purpose Ventures actually comes from. And so we want you to do well out of this as well. So just on cap tables quickly, these are kind of some of the things that we see that can become problematic. So one is that you've already taken money, and as I said before, it wasn't the right kind of money. Remember, not all money is good money. And those investors somehow own more of the business than you do. And suddenly we're not backing you, we're backing that investor who's probably not actually operationally involved in the business. And so, again, you've got to be careful on that type of deal. Same kind of idea where the investor might have not as much equity as you, but they've put on the shareholders' agreement a lot of terms of control that they're not prepared to relinquish. And then again, we're not actually working with you to build the company. We've got this small investor that kind of controls the business, and so that can be problematic. Next one we call a zoo of investors. So this is where maybe you have raised some money, but it's been lots and lots of small checks, and suddenly you haven't even got to your first $1 million check, and you've got 20 or 30 investors involved in the business. And for us, this is problematic because we like to come in with a really clean cap table, maybe one or two previous investors, plus the founders, maybe some employee stock options, and then us, because then collectively we can stay nimble and make fast decisions and build the company from there. If you've got lots of investors, that can slow many of the decisions up, and certainly future capital raising. And then the last scenario is what we call dead equity. These are people that are on your cap table that own material amounts of equity, but they're not actually adding future value to the company. The two things we see quite often is you might have set up your business with a co-founder or two co-founders. There's been some disagreement or some falling out and that person's left. But hey, when you started, maybe you were like a third, and they're still sitting there with 30% of the business. The reason we don't like that is that we're pretty confident once we invest, your company's going to start scaling and pretty quickly, which means the bulk of the value that you're going to add in that business financially starts coming after we've invested. Now, you're there working day in, day out, working your butt off, and then you've got this other person taking a free ride on equity, and we just don't think that's right. So all I'd suggest if you're in that situation, do everything you can, if you've had a fallout with your co-founder, to get them out of the company. At best, maybe they're left with a percentage or two because of the effort that they put into that point. But I can almost guarantee you, whatever they've done at the start, you will feel bad about that down the track if they're holding equity as your company grows and you're having all your sleepless nights building this business. We've been there many times before. So sometimes we'll help you get out of that situation, but we definitely won't invest in a business where there's an ex-co-founder with a high amount of equity. The other situation it can happen is you've come through a university or a research institute or something like that, and the company's been spun out, and then they've taken a large chunk of equity for that IP. Now, we don't have a problem with that in the sense of the institute getting the IP. They've often put a lot of money and even paid you salaries to get to that point. But again, that number's just got to be reflective of the future journey of the company. And often, we see situations where that might be 30, 40, 50%, which is just too high. We want to see the founding team and the executive team being the ones with the larger amounts of equity. Okay, I can come back to questions on all this as well, if I keep an eye on the clock. What time am I meant to go to? About 1:30. And then questions? Yep, okay. Another thing just around equity, and this sort of picks up in valuation as well, whenever I see an application come through, there's just this weird thing that founders feel the appropriate amount of equity that you want to give away in the business is 10%. It is like almost 100% of the time, that's the feeling. I'll put this slide up to show you what actually happens in the market, and you can see no matter what the round is, it's closer to 20%. In our case, and you almost won't hear another VC talk about it, it's like this black box thing, but most VCs, when they're investing in any round, they're going to try and get somewhere between a 15 to 20% position in your company. The reason is we want enough of a stake that we can get certain rights and we can be involved there to manage the money and be involved in really important decision making. But we don't want so much that we're actually owning and controlling the company. It's also likely for us as an early stage investor, we might give you your first million, your first 2, your first 3 million, but if you're building the kind of company we want to back, you're probably going to need to go and raise 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollars beyond that. And we won't be able to do that journey with you, which means we'll be diluting through that process. And so because we've taken a risk early, we want to make sure we've got enough equity that dilution journey makes sense for us as well. Now you can reverse engineer this and go, hey, I know Purpose Ventures wants roughly, let's just call it 20%, 15%, and the minimum check size is $1 million. That means my business is probably in the first instance going to be valued somewhere between $3, $4, $5, $6 million. What have I got to do to demonstrate that that's what my company's worth at the point that I'm talking to them about the money that they need? And so I'll talk about valuation shortly. There's lots of ways we think about it, but at a very fundamental level, that's the kind of way to consider it. Okay, second thing is what we say is loving the solution more than the problem. I kind of alluded to this before. We're looking for founders that care most deeply about the problem you're trying to solve, and you will do whatever it takes to solve that problem. I have literally invested in companies where I've never even looked at a product demo. I've just been trying to understand the founder and what they're wanting to build and why they're building that. And so when you come in and, certainly in our case, present to us, too many founders come in and the first part of your slide deck or presentation is all about the product and look what I've built. And the reality is it probably won't be, enterprise good enough level anyway. Our funding is going to help you build that. And so not to say don't touch on that, but what I'm more interested in is how have you been interacting with your customers? How have you proven that your customers care about the problem that you care about? How have you proven that they're even prepared to pay you to solve that problem? And more on that kind of space. So definitely think about that. Just 2 more, and then that's pretty much it. We'll take questions. The third one is what we just described as business hygiene. Again, we might help you with this, but you can make things a whole lot easier for yourself if you've got all of your back office house in order before you come and talk to us. So making sure you've got a good data room, that your financials are up to scratch, that your future business model is looking right and been reviewed by someone, that your shareholders agreement is in place, albeit we will change that, but we kind of need to see things that you've agreed. The balance sheet's really important, so often we'll see things like, it's not wrong, I'm not sure who's in the room, I have to be careful saying this. It's very common that we see accountants that don't understand startups tell you as a founder, hey, you're going to put money into the business, let's set that up as a founder loan, and then one day an investor will come along and you can pay the loan back. It's not what happens. The reality is when we give you money, if you've put money into the business and you use our money to pay yourself back, we were the ones that actually took the financial risk on getting the business to that point that attracted us in the first place. If that's there, we're going to ask you to remove it and convert that to equity or turn that into a loan agreement, which basically says you're not going to pay that back until we say okay. And what we're trying to do is find alignment to make sure that when, at the point we've invested, when money starts coming out of the business, we're all participating in that together. And so those kind of things, again, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but you do your best job to make sure all that stuff is in order. Because there are sometimes things that pop up that means we just actually can't invest in your business because of the way you were set up and structured. And then the last one is unrealistic valuations, and I kind of touched on this previously. If you come in and you can think your business is worth whatever it is, and that's fine. But I've given you some metrics of things that we look at, which creates alignment and a win-win for both you having enough equity and us as an investor making sure we get what we need out of it. You'll often hear comments that it is hard to value a startup, and it honestly can be, but these are some things that we think about to help with that. So the first one is this idea of the progress that you've made, the A on there, milestone progress. So we're quite happy to go, hey, that's a great idea, let's attribute some value. You've got a great team in place, some value, you've got some early sales, some value, product in market, there's some value there. And we can kind of build up to sort of call it between $2 and $3 million just of the progress that you've made. If you're interested in that, you can look up something called the Berkus method, spelled B-E-R-K-U-S. That'll help you understand what I'm talking about. So that's kind of value based on what you've historically done. And then you're going to have a model that you've built of what you think the revenue and cost base looks like for the next 3 or 4 years. Now, the crazy thing is that will 100% be wrong. As I said before, that's the point. Like, you don't know what you don't know. But what it is going to be is your best assumptions of your business at that point in time. And we need to align with that and say, okay, when we invest, that's what we're going to go after. And if we believe in that model, we can then use some more traditional financial metrics like net present value and discounted cash flow to take the future value that you're building and bringing that into today's terms. And so we think the valuation then sits somewhere between the progress that you've made and a little bit of contribution to the future value, and that's kind of where the number comes up with. And just keep in mind with that future business model, it's a little bit art and science. We have way more data than you will on what the fastest growing companies in the world look like. So when we look at your model, we'll be testing that against, are you growing fast enough? Some people are like a bit too conservative. And the problem with that is, like, we're a venture capital investor. We need to minimum 10x our money. So if you can like get us to agree that your company's worth $10 million, we've got to look at a model that says, hey, in the next 3 or 4 years, I've got to get that to $100 million worth of valuation. And so the model needs to speak to that. So you can't be too conservative. But if you go the other way and growing too fast, we know what the fastest growing companies look like. And then we kind of go, well, you don't really know your business and we won't believe that. I've literally had 2 companies, bizarrely, the same number actually. They both, from a standing start, were going to go to the US and generate $50 million revenue in their first year. And I actually blocked both these companies. I said, let's just not realistic. Not to stifle your ambition, but you will be the fastest growing company of all time in the history of the world ever, basically. Although AI might change that. But so why don't you go and have a rethink about that, and then we can see if we can find a model to work with. And on both occasions, they said, no, we want to back ourselves, we're going to do it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I'm not going to invest in your business. Because there's this, you've got to kind of, we see a lot of these deals and, we're trying to find people that we can work with and are coachable and are listening and things. So those guys didn't get our money. The other couple of things just to touch on here is, and probably the one thing you might want to look at is what's called comparative metrics. And the thing I just mentioned here is this is when you can find a deal that's like your deal and say to us, hey, this company got invested in, that was their valuation, we kind of want you to line up to that. You just need to make sure it's comparative of both geography and time. So there is no point you coming to me going, there was a SaaS business in the US that looks like ours that got a 19 times multiple on their ARR in 2021. Because right now in Perth in 2025, the multiples are nowhere near that number. Unfortunately, at the moment, valuations are quite down. It's more of an investor's market, and particularly in Australia, there's not many venture capital funds writing first checks and leading those checks. If I heard a really low number yesterday, like sub 10 funds, even though there's lots of funds, they either don't have the capital or the capital they have is for follow-on investments in their current portfolio just because there's a lot of economic uncertainty. So you go back 2 or 3 years, it was a founder's market, like the valuations were high, but they are a little bit lower at the moment. I wouldn't get too worked up in that. This whole thing is don't get caught up on the valuation. What you really got to think about is the dilution, and are you working with the right capital partner that can help build that company. I heard the other day, Jensen, the founder of NVIDIA, he owns like 1.6% of his company, and you can work out what that's actually worth in billions of dollars, right? So it's just making sure you're thinking about the dilution on that journey of creating value. All right, a couple of final slides, and then we're probably good for time. So one thing I just mentioned, when you're talking to an investor, due diligence is always on. This never comes across the right way when I say this, but I have a knack for names and faces, and already I'm just looking out in the audience and I can tell you who's yawned, who's been taking notes, who's been checking their emails, and who's been engaged with my presentation. And that matters to me, like little things like that. And so you just got to think that, everything I was saying before is about the founder-investor relationship. And so I've been those things we learn a skill to try and figure out little things along the way to help us navigate that. Now, literally to the point, this is one of the funny things we talk about, is if you'd like to come and meet us and pitch, and we like the company enough that you get to come in, you'll meet Lockie. And Lockie sits at reception, he's very friendly, and he'll chat away, and he'll offer you a drink, and he'll take you through to the boardroom, and he'll get you set up, and he'll keep chatting to you. And then you'll pitch, and you'll do your pitch, and you'll feel like you've walked out and you've done a great job. And the very first thing we do as an investment team isn't really talk about how you went. We go and talk to Lockie. And we say, hey, Lockie, how was that person when they arrived? Like, how did they chat to you? It sounds small, but we look at, did you offer to pick up your glass and take it back? Our office is tiny. Did you offer to take your glass back to the kitchen on the way out? And we're not making investment decisions on that, don't get me wrong, but we're just looking for good people and good humans to back. And so, I'm just trying to say, put your best foot forward. Don't not come and say hi to me after this session if you wanted to do that, because you're now freaking out. Please don't do that. But just put your best foot forward. If I ask you about your business, just be excited about it, and the passion that you've got. I mean, you're giving up your time and money and life to do it. Just let that come out. Just remember who you are and why you're doing this, and just be yourself is kind of probably the takeaway point. But just remember that everything you do before we invest, we're looking at to go, are you the kind of founder that we want to work with? Everyone gets very clammed up when I do that slide, but I'm just trying to help, to be honest. Some final fun and ticks. I think we've probably gone through a lot of this. In our case, many venture funds, you will put an application in. Just saying, it's not a binary process. Like most of the companies we've invested in, we might have seen an application or met the founder. It might not quite be a fit at that level, that time, because of things that I've just gone through. But if we like the business and you go away and work on those and come back to us, then we'll take a look at the company again. I'm pretty sure, probably bar our 9 companies, of 1 or 2, most of those, that's been the case, actually. So that's good. Make sure, when you do apply and then you come in and talk to us, those things will look the same. It is uncanny the amount of times someone is looking for a certain amount of money, and by the time they come to meet us a week later, they want more money. And that's never a good sign, because it's kind of like, well, hang on now, maybe you're a bit greedy, and that's a character issue, and so we don't want to invest. Remember, everything's a signal. Due diligence is always on. Or you change your model so quickly in that month, you're still, it's just too fluid, and you're not kind of ready for capital yet. Know your numbers. We will, in that meeting, we'll ask you, when are you going to reach profitability? What's your acquisition cost? What's your lifetime value? What's your ARR? You can't go, I need to talk to my accountant or CFO about that. As a founder, you've got to learn those commercial financial skills. Valuation we've talked about. Don't burn your bridges. In Perth, it's a small place, right? I could almost guarantee you, if you're talking to other investors, even nationally, if you're talking to other VC funds, I will know who they are. And it's not out of the question that if I said no to your investment and you went and talked to someone else, this happened many times, that person will call me and go, hey, have you heard of this company? What do you think about them? Whatever. So if I've said no and on the way out you've blasted or sent an inappropriate email, I'm not going to be supportive of you trying to get capital, because it's all about character, right? And good humans, all the stuff I'm talking about. So even if you get really pissed off with something that I say, because you might, when we say no, just keep it to yourself. And I'm only putting this point up because people don't. I don't have time to tell you all the funny stories of things that people have done, but there's lots of funny stories. No one in this room today has been one of those people, so it's okay. We talked about the growth model and do due diligence on your investors. So I think you can just take a photo of this. These are the kind of things that you might want to ask your investors. And from our point of view, we're very happy for you to ask us any of these questions. And you need to think about it. If they can't answer that, or they're not prepared to give you the answer to those questions, then you might want to go, is this the kind of investor I want in my business? We always say to founders that we're trying to invest in and they're not sure if they want to take our capital, you are welcome to, I can introduce you, or you can cold call any one of our portfolio companies, any one of the Better Labs companies that I invested in, and just talk to the founder and ask them what the experience is like, and what do they think about taking our money. And I'm pretty confident in what they would say and that experience. In fact, even today here, Franco's up the back. He's one of the founders of Space2Co, which is one of the great companies we've invested in, and Dave, who runs Morning Startup, is Plan Care. We've invested in his business. So today you might be better going asking them questions than me and go, hey, what's it like to, work with these guys? And hopefully they'll say nice things about us. Okay, quickly about Purpose Ventures and then questions. Main thing I just wanted to show here is our first investment was in July 2023, 2 years ago, almost to the day. In that time, we've had 559 applications. So this is not all the companies that go through the accelerator programs. I love today, because I don't know many people in the room, which is unusual, and this is just one of the great things about Perth. We're continuing to build our startup ecosystem. People are always starting companies. So, none of you guys are included in those numbers. So there's a lot of deal flow opportunity in Western Australia, but those that have actually reached a point of putting in an application is 559. And we've invested in about to be 9. So it gives you the kind of idea of the odds, and that's not to discourage you, to be honest. It's just kind of saying, hey, in our first fund, we're only going to invest in about 15 to 20 companies. We have to be really selective on those that we pick. And as a venture fund, it's pretty common that we would invest in 2 or 3 of every 100 companies that we look at. So you just need to understand that if you're going to raise money, remembering that not all money is good money, you're going to have to work out, it might be 40, 50, 60 investors. I heard, what's the Starbucks founder? Howard Schultz. I was listening to a Quiet podcast, and he was saying before he raised his first money, it was something like 250 investors that he spoke to. And so and that's about finding alignment, chasing that down. So just be prepared. If it's not us, it's going to be a bit of work to find the investor. It's not trying to deter you, it's just saying be prepared. And the other thing I just probably point out here is just interesting, like the split of female to male founders that actually have applied. I think that's maybe reflective of the market. But as a fund, it's now, Lockie, you might need to help me. I think of the 9 companies, I think 4 are female founded. Maybe 3 or 4? Yeah, which is really high. And by the way, that's just in terms of national stats on merit. It's not like 5, is it? Yeah, it's not a quota we chase or anything. But in our team, I only showed a picture of Lockie, but my wife Kylie is one of our general partners, and our investment manager is a lady called Kirsty Packer. And I think, and then we have an operating partner, Marcus Tan, who you might know, who was the founder of Health Engine. I think we just have diversity in our investment team, and I think that comes through in some of the investment decisions that we make. There are companies, 8, about to be 9, and I'll finish there. Questions? It's pretty hard, by the way, to cover everything about VC in about 30 minutes, but hopefully that's given you some things to think about. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, go. Yeah.
Hi, Jared. We're still out here.
Yeah, Derek.
Derek, sorry.
That's right. Yeah.
Why did that there we go. But
happens all the time. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's right. Look, still out here, but I've been a lot further down this journey of chasing people around for funding, and so I'm a lot more mature than when I originally spoke to you, particularly around this idea of in some places the odds might be good, but the goods are odd, There's a lot of scammers out there and a lot of really strange deals that people try to put in front of you. And what's come to my understanding is it's a lot better to get referrals than investment even, to a certain point. It's a very small geographical, there's a tyranny of geography operating here in Perth. And what are the opportunities for hitting up someone you approach for investment to get referrals to get other investors that might be more appropriate?
Yeah, referrals for investors. Yeah, so a couple of comments on that. If you came to pitch to us and it was a bit too early, but we really liked the business, it's not uncommon that we would refer you to someone that's a bit of an earlier stage investor. Today is not a day to go through all the funding sources, but earlier stage in us in WA is mostly the angel network or the syndicate groups. Yeah. So you've got VentureX. Rob Nathan, who is a great supporter of the startup ecosystem, is running a syndicate group through Curtin University and through +8. And they're, I don't know exactly, but they probably normally they could do up to $100,000, maybe $200,000 check. VentureX is a female backed syndicate model as well. And then you've got the Perth Angel Group that used to be run by Wilson Casado. I'm not sure who the current chair is at the moment, but so we might make that referral for you. Likewise, all of those groups in Perth, if you need more capital, it's not out of the question they will be referring to us anyway. Same is true nationally. So if it's not quite a fit for our fund, we will make those introductions. The thing you just got to understand is that if I make a referral, if you come and pitch to me and I make a referral, the first question I'm going to get asked is, why are you not investing in that business? So it has to be because of either thematic, we don't invest in what you do, or you're probably a bit too early or a bit too late, and therefore we try and do that. The second comment I'd make is, if we decide to invest in your business, mostly in WA, because the check sizes are a bit smaller, we will often just do the whole round. But if we feel like we want to do a portion of that, for different reasons, and bring in other investors, we'll help you with that. Because the point we've made up our mind, we want to invest. We really just want to get you the money so you can get back to building the business and get out of capital raising stage. So, and we definitely, once we've invested, we've got our first 2 companies going through their next follow-on round, like a year or 2 later, and we will absolutely make loads of investor introductions to that. Just by way of example, next week happens to be in Western Australia this year. There's a conference called Venture Down Under, which pretty much all of the Australian VCs show up to, which we've been a part of for a long time. And I think there's like 130 people coming representing 100 funds. So we know pretty much, like I'd say, 95% of the funds around Australia. So certainly on that follow-on round, we'll be working with you to try and figure out who the best investor is. So.
Hey Derek, thanks for sharing all that information with us. And I've got a lot of questions, but I guess my first 2 are, do you syndicate? Like, do you mind coming in under a syndication? And second of all, I guess as a follow-on is, how do you do due diligence on the other investors that are already in there? So
Sure.
Apart from a founder, how do you check up on the other investors that are coming in on the deal?
Okay. So for those that don't understand, a syndicated investment, normally, if this is what you mean, is someone would be running that and bringing in multiple investors. So the actual syndicate models I'm aware of, for example, is sometimes Perth Angels do that, or VentureX, or Rob Nathan's groups. It's normally a syndicated investment is people that are writing smaller checks, like $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, and they're trying to pull that together, and they would come in as one entry on your cap table, and collectively it might represent anything from $100,000 up. In our case, we wouldn't be part of a syndicate, because normally, certainly all the deals we've done, we've been the largest investor. And because of that, we're trying to make sure that we've got at least 15% plus equity, as I mentioned. And what comes with that is also a right that we can become a director on the board, a bunch of decision making in the company that we want to be participating in. Because most of the time, the companies we invest in, for most people, we're going to give you a check that's bigger than money you've ever seen before. So we're not just going to go good luck. We're going to want to have some, kind of management of that with you. That's not to say we won't co-invest. So if you had a syndicate group that was putting in $400,000 or $500,000, and then we were putting in the next kind of $1 million, we would co-invest. But again, most of the deals we do, we're going to be the larger investor in that scenario, and we're going to probably want the rights over that syndicate group. Second question, if we're investing in a company and there's investors, if they're small, like minority type investors, sub 5%, it is what it is. A lot of it comes down to how is the decision making done in the company. People mistakenly think that if you own 51% of the company, you therefore control the company. It's not true. I've got companies that I've owned 6% in, and I control the company, because you can put whatever terms you like into that shareholders agreement. And so to get our capital, we wanted these particular rights. So a lot of it comes down to who are those investors and how does that influence the future management and major decisions. If someone was a major investor, we would absolutely, if we didn't know them, we would talk to them as part of our DD process and ask for that kind of introduction. So, yeah.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. So you spoke before about the business hygiene, and they had a list of what I visualize as documents or a pack that would be varied based on the startup or the business or etc. What have you seen that's made, if I am visualizing this correctly as a pack, what have you seen makes that quality? What have people done?
Great question. So you're right. So most of that are documents. In fact, they're all documents. When we first meet, you're probably like a pitch deck, and we're in a meeting and we're chatting. And then when we go into what I describe as due diligence, you would prepare what's called a data room, or a document vault or something like that. So it can be as simple as Google Drive. A lot of people at the moment are using Notion and kind of putting everything in there, which is interesting. Up to you. We often will just say, like, we'll give you access to our Google Drive and just say load the documents in. And it goes everything. It's like constitution, ASIC, extract, IP documents, trademark documents, employee agreements. And in our case, when we ask for that, we give you a list of all of those things. I probably should put that up, actually. And so to make it look good, two things I'd say. Number one is when we ask for that, don't take more than 24 hours to get us all the documents. The reason I say that is that, again, it's due diligence is always on. So if you've come and pitched to us and you say, I'm ready to raise capital, and I go, great, we're ready to invest, can you give me this information? And you take a week to pull it together. I'm just going like, well, you weren't really ready for capital. So if you've got that ready to go, that's helpful. And then the second thing is, as much of that information that you've got pre-prepared and just either by using our format or a format that's similar so it's easy for us to navigate through, that's the best thing to do. We normally say if you haven't got one of those documents, don't go and create it for us, just because a lot of the, again, your early stage companies, we've got templates for everything. And the reality is even your shareholders agreement and constitution, we're going to probably need to replace because when we invest, we create a new class of share. So you don't need to overthink it, but it's just showing that you're organised and on top of those things. That's a really good question. No one's ever asked that before.
So, do you mind if I ask another one? Follow up to that.
Is that another good question?
another one. So you're not expecting everybody to have you'll have the templates available, and you'll give that to them, and they will only return what they have up to that point.
Yeah, so you would, we'd say, give us everything you've got with this list of stuff, you give us what you've got.
Yeah.
If you don't have something and we like the business, we'll help you get it in place.
Okay.
But there'll be some things, like, because again, you might be a sole founder, you don't need a shareholders agreement. But now we're both investors, we need a shareholders agreement. Your constitution probably doesn't talk about the share class. So we normally are a seed investor. We create a new class of share called a seed preference share. That won't exist. That's got to go in the constitution. So we'll be updating that. And so, it's just more providing those that you've got. The one that's kind of pretty critical, if you go back to I was saying before about valuation, having your business model or your forecast or budget, whatever you want to describe that, of what the next 3 years might look like and how you're going to spend the money that you get, that's a pretty critical document to think about. And then often, you might not have thought about IP assignment, for example. That's critical to us. So if there's no employment agreement with the founder, or you've just been building this company and there's no comment of who owns the IP, we'll get you to sign a document that says all the IP is assigned to the company so that we know the business that we're investing in, all of the value of that IP sits there. So if you've got it, that's great. If we don't like it, we'll ask you to change it anyway, but the fact that you've got it is a good signal that you've been thinking about those things. And then if you don't have it and we need it, if we're going to invest, we'll help put it in place. Yeah, out the back, out the front.
No, sorry.
Oh, hi.
Thank you. Hello, Derek.
Hi.
It's been a minute. Hello. Probably a question in case the room's wondering this as well. How much influence do you see investors having over the future business model, specifically for Series B?
I think founders, we're always going to have a view on the world and give our thoughts and comments, but and some investors probably expect that you're going to listen really hard to that. I guess to me, it's a bit of a collaborative effort in that we're backing you because of the business you want to build, and in theory, you know the market better than us, and you know your customers better than us. So my view is we've got to kind of listen to that. But I think where we'd like to influence that is, I know the size company you need to be at to get to Series B, and I know how fast you've got to get there, and I know what month-on-month revenue's got to look like, and I know how to unlock your B2B or B2C sales pipeline. And so I guess, and we've done that with many, many, many companies all the way through to exit. So the influence I'd like to have if I was involved is helping you see around corners that you've maybe not looked at yourself before, or making sure that the way we're tracking is lining up to market metrics that will give you the best shot. But in terms of the nitty-gritty of those details, we're probably never going to be, unless it's a business I've been in before, not necessarily know that. So yeah, I think, but not all investors see it that way. And I think as a founder, you've got to be really careful. I was saying before, you're going to sit in 40, 50 meetings. If every time an investor gives you feedback, and there's two different types. There's feedback that might be common, that is a problem that you want to go and fix to give yourself the best shot of raising capital. But there's other feedback which is just their opinion that might not be right. And if you're forever trying to change the business based on what the last investor said, you're not actually kind of running with your own conviction and what you believe in that. So, but again, actually, I don't know if Franco's still here, but they're good questions to ask Dave and Franco, because we do business modelling with them, and I'm pretty sure Dave would say, like, he prepares the model, he's got the idea of how he's spending his money and how fast he wants to grow. Sometimes he's growing faster than I think he should, and I'm like, slow down. He's like, no, I want to have a crack at it. Other times I'm like, we're not going fast enough. And it's just very collaborative depending on the day of the week it is that we're talking. So. Yes, right. We're doing a next one, which we talked about last week, and now we're talking about again. So certainly from my point of view, I think we can add value to that conversation, so happy to help out and be involved.
I think from a founder point of view, anybody who is going into a raise, it's important to know who you're effectively getting into bed with as well. So, we all kind of sit there as founders going, we want money, we want money, we want money, and they're going to do all the due diligence on you. But when you sit on the other side of it, it's really important that you know who you've actually have got into bed with, because it's a relationship. I've got a relationship with Derek now for effectively 10 years. Whether I like it or not, we've got to go through, and every month I've got to speak to Derek. So when you're doing it, you should also be doing the due diligence on the VC. Don't just take the money because they're giving it to them, because if it's coming across too easy, they're probably not the right people for you. If they don't understand your model, they don't understand how you grow, your vision as a founder, definitely make sure you do the due diligence on the person who's giving you money. And that starts at VC or friends and families and fools level as well. It's not just at VC level. Are there any other questions?
There's one at the front.
Thank you. I do want to piggyback off that question, if I may. So I have looked into Purpose Ventures as well as Malco. I'm part of Murdoch. Yeah, and they have been involved in some of our units there. I'm a student, even though I look old as I am.
No, at Murdoch?
At Murdoch,
yeah.
Okay. I'm really, and I've also watched Malcolm Steinberg's videos and stuff like that. I love the way he's so invested in Western Australia.
Yeah.
So in growing my business, and especially with software developers, I've looked at trying to use West Australian as much as possible. But I have actually fallen in love with an Eastern States firm who Well, there we go. That was kind of.
No, I'm joking.
I really will that be frowned upon in a sense. They're just such a good vibe. They're such a good fit, I think, for where I'm at.
Sure. No. From my point of view, no problem. I mean, obviously, most of us in the room, I suspect, are parochial West Australians and care deeply about our state, but which we do. And as I said, all our investors are from WA. For those that don't know, Malcolm Steinberg was the cornerstone investor in our fund. He was the brand people know as Time Zone. He was the founder of Time Zone, and he's very supportive of the whole ecosystem. And Malca, that I chair, is his family foundation, and we donate to Murdoch among other things. But no, I think at the end of the day, I wouldn't even worry about that. I'd go, you've got to find the technical skills that you need, wherever they might be, to build the business. That's the primary thing, and I wouldn't get too worried about that. And if anything, I don't think it's necessarily your job to think about building Western Australia. I think that's probably more our job and how we go about that, and the government's job, and just find the best people to build that. Just a quick note on that. I mean, the session with Lee in a couple of weeks might be a good one to come and listen to, because Lee certainly knows a lot of who's building what in WA and things. Yeah, you booked in for that. And one of the hard things in WA, I mean, in an ideal world, we would like to, I didn't talk a lot about this, but back a founding team that has a combination of industry knowledge, commercial knowledge, and technical knowledge, like whatever your innovation is. And if it's software, we kind of expect that one of the co-founders is a CTO. That can be quite hard in WA. There's not that many people that can play CTO roles, which is the point of the session in a couple of weeks. So it's not uncommon that we will, and again, not all investors see it this way, but we'll work with a company, maybe like yours, that's used an outsourced company to develop, which, by the way, you should chat to Tom. I just realised. Yeah, Tom's over here. So if you haven't made up your mind, just have a quick chat to Tom before you make your decision. He'll chase you down now anyway, I guarantee you. Actually, yeah, Lee's good, but sorry, Tom, I should have pointed you out before. So Tom, he can give a plug later, but he's involved in a software development company that actually helps startups that don't have CTOs kind of get going and then can do a lot of that journey with you. And it's not out of the question that because there's companies we see that have done that, we'll invest, but part of our investment will be predicated on putting in a CTO, because ultimately, if the innovation and the defensibility that you're building is technical, we kind of want that in-house. So I think it's fine to use an outsourced company up to a point, but normally once you start raising your multi-millions of dollars. So again, you've got to find a partner that understands that and can even do that transition with you and not get funny about the IP and the code that they built and things like that. So if you were using a third party, that's the kind of stuff we'd be thinking about. And quite frankly, there's been companies that have used a third party. That contract says all the IP belongs to them. They won't assign it to the business, and we literally can't invest even if we want to, because it's just too risky.
Go back and watch one video, a talk by Maggie from YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Go and watch a video. She shared a story where she used a Eastern State development company and she spent thousands. I would also say in the day of AI, go and try one of those tools just to get your proof of concept up and running, like Lovable or something like that, because they're not very good when you connect to back ends like a database, but they're very good for creating a usable UI to sort of tell the story of what you want to do.
Yep. I think that's a question you've been asking, waiting for.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Derek. You spoke about risk and you spoke about commitment, and as a founder, there's that catch-22 of I've got to pay for my living expenses, but I want to build a company. So how do you, what's your perception of that, and how do you support a potential business you're interested in through that journey of maybe moving from a full-time employed job to go full-time into their startup within all the investment activity as well?
Great question. I have a feeling this might be the last one, just timing-wise. But yeah, it's a really good question. So I think the first thing is that if we're going to back your company, we're wanting you to have already made the jump into the business. You've got to have enough conviction that you're prepared to walk away from whatever it was you were doing as your day job. I think it's perfectly, I would call that bootstrapping. You're working your day job until you built the company to a point that you can attract an investor like us. Very good strategy to fund the company because you're not diluting and you're kind of de-risking it for an investor. But we won't be the catalyst for you to join full-time. So if you're kind of going, if you invest, I'll become full-time, it's like, no, you haven't had the conviction. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is when we invest, we don't want our founders worrying about cash flow in their family, because then you're just going to get distracted very quickly and not focus on the business. There is a big difference between what we think you should earn and what you think you should earn, and we'll often have that conversation. And what we're trying to do is go, look, we want you to have enough income that you can look after your family, but we also need to be incentivized here that the big check comes at the end of the journey when you exit, and if the income's too good, then maybe you're not focused on the growth in the way that it should be. I've literally had a founder, this is a bit of an anomaly, but they started on a roughly $90,000 salary when we invested, and within 2 years they were earning $250,000 because they were over a $20 million revenue company. So we don't mind bumping the salary relative to the performance of the business. The other thing I'd say, and you can access this, but we have a lot of data on what founder salaries are at the stage of the company, the capital that you raised and the revenue that you generate. And so we'll use benchmarks. So you might come in and go, hey, I think I want 150 grand. We're like, look, we reckon based on our data it's 120 grand, but we're happy if you get the business to this point, we can give you a salary rise and things like that. So it's kind of weird because you start off going, it was my company, I pay what I want. You take an investor and now you've got someone that's going to determine what your pay is. So you sort of got a boss again, but that's just the way the world works. Like, I'll give you money and I'll feel like your boss, but I've got investors and they feel like my boss, and they've probably, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the way the world works. So, and that's where, it's probably a good thing to finish. It's alignment with your investor. Like, if you don't trust that I'm going to look after you and do the right thing, and you can come and have a conversation about, I need more money or whatever. And again, I'd say chat to Franco and Dave. Like, we've had very honest chats with these guys, and, I'm sure they're happy to share their story about how that's worked.
I'm happy to share even like what I was earning for many years. Like, as a founder, if you're not prepared to sort of live on ramen noodles for a good number of years, you're not hurting enough to or hungry enough to kind of build the business. And so I think you'll be the same. It's only sort of in recent years, you can actually start to pay yourself a proper wage, and that's 5 years into the, well, for me, this is the second business, but this is 5 years or 4.5 years into this current business.
Yeah. It's kind of, actually, I'll just say it's better. It would be better you're coming in going, hey, I only want to earn 80 grand, that's the average salary, and I'm the one going, no, I think you should be earning 120 grand, and we do that, versus I want to earn 250 and I'm trying to drag you back to, so just, again, I just say do your research and just be realistic. Like, we're not trying to be difficult. But
the question I used to ask myself, I know we've got to stop for time, but the question I always used to say to it is that if I'd share my wage, for many years I was earning like literally $56,000 to $59,000 for many of it, and then I went up to the 90, and that kind of is the salary which when you take that first investment, and that's where it sat for many years. But I think the question I always used to ask myself is like, yes, I could if I wanted to, because I've got the money paying myself $250,000, but that money that that difference of 150 or 160,000, well, that's a dev. Does that mean if I took that money for that year, would it get me quicker to that 250 salary? Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like you have the pain for a shorter period of time, but it's a longer term gain. On that, I'm going to have to call it, because I've got to put the chairs away, because I'm the chairperson, and we have to put this place back at 9 o'clock. I want a round of applause for Derek. Yeah, I can't say, if we can stop broadcasting, I'm the chair.
That's right. And if that freaks you out a little bit, if you don't quite think you're ready or you don't have the stuff, just remember they did invest in Dave, so come on, you'll be all right.
Dave's great.
Thanks. 2 weeks' time, we've got Lee, who's going to talk about hiring your CTO, so please come along to that. And don't forget Founder Sundowner next Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. at other side of nowhere, West Leederville. But enjoy the food, get to know each other. Are you going to hang around for 10 minutes or so? Sweet. Yes, and beware of the flying furniture. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.